I'm Shahzada Ahmad. I'm from UNDP, Sudan. I work on the Rule of Law program in Darfur. Specifically, I work in North Darfur and Al Fasher, which is the capital of Darfur, which is located in western Sudan. There are several development challenges, particularly in rule of law, because it's an ongoing conflict. It's very difficult to think of how to instill a formal legal justice system that's going to effectively reach out to a group of people that may have been brutalized by the formal legal justice system that was in place. The challenge for UNDP is that we work in the IDP camps, and we've established justice and confidence centers in partnership with the International Rescue Committee. And so when you have an outbreak of violence, you know violations are occurring, but sometimes you're not able to access that area and really get a clear picture of what's going on until things have settled down and we're allowed back in, and that can take a lot of time. The other issue is that because UNDP has wonderful partnerships with INGOs, we work a lot through them like IRC, they are also under a great deal of pressure from the government, particularly in gender-based violence situation, which is a very sensitive issue for the government. From 2005, they were denying that rape was occurring at all in Sudan because their argument was that rape is against Islam, this is an Islamic country, and so it's not possible for this to be occurring here. So for us, this has been one of the challenges, is that given the heightened security phase, given the heightened tensions, how do we still provide services to survivors? How do we still keep these paralegal programs that are so important to the communities, particularly the IDP communities, how do we keep them going? How do we make sure that survivors feel safe to come to us? Now with that, we also have to work with the formal legal justice system. And the formal legal justice system is difficult because on the one hand, they're not receiving funds from the government to have proper judges in place at all times, to have prosecutors in place at all times, to have even filing cabinets or computers. I mean, this is really basic stuff. You walk into a cement building and there's a chair and a desk and your prosecutor. And he's looking at you and you're like, listen, you need to investigate these cases, you need to move forward on this, are you working with the police? And he's looking at you like, you know, I could really use a laptop. I could really use a file cabinet and some folders. I work very closely with one prosecutor. We have an interesting relationship. It's been 1.5 years that I've been working with him, and he's under so much pressure from his government not to highlight sexual violence cases because it looks so bad on the government. But at the same time, he knows what I'm there for. He knows that I'm there to find out what's happening with these cases I'm hearing about. And he says, well, you know, these women are very promiscuous. And it's not rape, it's adultery. And I'm looking at him like, really? A 14-year-old girl is promiscuous with a soldier who has a gun? And he's like, yes. So you have the very horrible situation where you can have a young woman who's unmarried, who's been raped, goes and reports the case, and the prosecutor, because he's under so much pressure, he doesn't want to go to the Janjaweed commanders in the area and say, which soldier did this? He says, I don't think this is rape. I think that this is you being promiscuous. We're going to charge you with adultery. And he lashes the rape survivor and sends her off. So you understand the pressure that's on him, and then as UNDP you go, well, this is impunity. You know what's going on, and you're refusing to acknowledge it, but you still want us to assist you in your capacity building, in your office, and so how do you reconcile these things? It's a very difficult situation to be in. Women can be sexually assaulted on a regular, kind of everyday, daily basis, and the men who are doing it, they know they can get away with it, either because the government is protecting them or because the evidence law doesn't, facilitate their prosecution. So you're left with constantly trying to defend the women without being able to go after the men who are doing this, because the penalties are so great for the women that for me, if I can prevent her from being lashed, this is much more important to me right now in this moment than trying to follow up with making sure that the military lifts their immunity, because that battle I may very well lose, but at least I can save her from being further traumatized by what's happened to her. So I think that this is one of the things in the field that these are the choices you have to make. It's it's not how you can decrease the harms. It's like which harm of all the harms that are in front of her, which ones can I best shield her from, and just trying to prioritize them that way. Because there's no way that you can protect her from everything, but at least we're there to protect her from some things. And so that's really the best of it that you can do. There's a Form 8 strategy that our team developed in Darfur. Women who were being sexually assaulted and raped, particularly by soldiers or government actors or whoever it was, weren't inclined to go to the police station and say, I've been sexually assaulted or raped, could I get a Form 8 so I can fill it out and get my medical treatment? And this was also a great way for them to deter women from reporting anything, right? Because, well, we have the Form 8 and nobody's reporting, so then that means there are no cases. So with a lot of advocacy effort, in 2005, the Wali of South Darfur gave out these 7 decrees, and he said, well, if you're a woman and you've been assaulted, you don't need to fill out the Form 8, you can go directly and get medical treatment. So we thought this was a great victory, and we were quite glad about it. It was called Circular 2. It was issued by the Ministry of Justice. It was distributed throughout Darfur. However, because the Darfurs are so different, and because the judges change so frequently, even in North Darfur, some judges know about it, some don't know about it, some of the police know about it, some of them don't know about it, some of them don't care to enforce it, and there's nobody there to keep them from enforcing it. It's the same with the prosecutor. He knows it, he has it, he understands it, but if this is going to prevent a case of sexual violence from being reported, well then all the better. So they were really abusing this actually quite good Circular 2 that was going to allow women to get medical treatment. So a large part of our work has been campaigning with prosecutors, with judges, with police, law enforcement, with the rebel groups, and saying, listen, you don't need this Form 8. You don't need to go to the police. You don't need to go to the prosecutor. You can go directly to the hospital and get treatment, which was great. The problem was that now you have the doctors, and the doctors who were like, but you need Form 8, so I'm not going to treat you without the Form 8. So wonderfully, with our partnership with UNFPA campaigns with the hospitals and the doctors. And it came to such a point that now UNDP does a session for UNFPA on Form 8, on the legal justice system for doctors and health practitioners during their clinical management of rape seminars. So this is just another part of what UNDP does because we see a gap and we're going to fill it. So if it means that we just add on more activities and raise more awareness with people who are not traditionally within our group, we do it. So this was a great push forward for us.